Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On the show, we get into self-care that really makes a difference. It is self-care that takes courage because it's the kind of self-care where you need to go inside. You need to get introspective. You probably need someone to support you. And all of these things take courage because we are generally programmed to not ask for help, to deal with things on our own, to be the amazing super women, Wonder Women that we are, where we look good doing all the things, and we really do all the things by ourselves, and we think that that's how life should be. I disagree with that, and so I call it the Wonder Woman syndrome. And with courageous self-care, we can help overcome that. So we find strength in asking for help. We find strength in getting support. We find our strength and power by going inside and shifting what's no longer working for us. So I am here to help you do that. And I always love, well, not always, but often love to get a guide to help me on the show who is aligned with the aspects of courageous self-care. So today I have with me Kerri Cust. Kerri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are up to these days.
Yeah, so I would call myself a self-love and intimacy coach. So I work, this came from my own journey this kind of work always does, but I guide clients to really live a life that's really theirs. So one that they're not merely just checking the boxes, but one that really liberates their true gifts, their authentic self. Because I find that, and this was in my own experience of, getting a life where we did all the things that we thought we should do and getting to a point where it's like, oh, is this it? It's, discovering that this life has promised so much and delivered so little. And so I work with clients to really get to a place where they're loving themselves, loving their life, having the sort of the intimacy, the belonging, intimacy, and pleasure that they're really looking for. And this can only really start with doing sort of that own inner emotional work. So that's what I do with people through workshops and one-on-one sessions.
And that's why we're so aligned, because it's all about processing emotions and feeling the stuff that's uncomfortable and working through that so that they're not owning you. You are masterful at it.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Relearning to feel is quite the journey. And that's something that, for myself, it's a continual practice of just like, okay, jot down, what am I feeling, and being able to fully feel them and not think my feelings, which I'm also very good at, but really feeling your feelings. And it's just, it was something that, in my experience is not, growing up, it's like I didn't really get the chance to feel. So it's like relearning, how can I feel what's going on, like really feel the emotions, really feel the feelings, and then move through them so they're not just sort of keeping me captive, or I'm not running the same loop again and again. So yes.
Yeah, I had such an experience yesterday where I was like, okay, what do I teach my clients? Because I need to practice it right now. This is some intense emotion I'm feeling, and I don't want to take it out on someone else. So how am I going to take my own medicine? And man, it works so well.
Yeah. My life is much better when I practice what I preach. That's for sure. Yes. And and our clients are like the perfect mirror for that. That's what I'm finding. I'm just like, oh, what's this homework I'm getting? I'm just like,
exactly.
I need to do that. So yes.
I love it. So Kerri, on the show, I love to get guests to share a current favorite self-care practice, usually the kind that go beyond bubble baths, chocolate, and wine. I have nothing against those practices, although I wouldn't call them practices, I would call them Band-Aids. And so what's something that you do for self-care that really nourishes you and fills you up from the inside?
So I'm always a big fan of meditation. So I know that can be sort of a challenging practice for people, and it can still be a very challenging practice for me when I'm sitting there and I'm just like, have I just been thinking for 10, 15, 20 minutes? But I do find that even if I take that time, and even if I am struggling throughout the day, there'll just be moments where it's like, well, I gave myself that time, and then I can just see, even if I'm quote unquote struggling with meditation, then I still reap the benefits after, like taking that time for myself. And I think especially for women, like a big practice that really makes me like feel really good is dance. So some sort of movement, because all sort of like, especially as women, like all our power and everything is on our lower bodies. Our people are familiar with the chakras and our lower chakras. So our creativity, our sensuality, our power, our intuition, and our feelings. So like everything's sort of in this area. So when we start to move, then it's like we really start to kind of, that energy is no longer stagnant. Things are moving. And so then it's like I get the opportunity to feel a lot more. So like moving as I'm feeling. So one of my teachers taught me that as well, of just like really getting into my body and really like feeling. So like this morning before we started, I was dancing around in my living room, and it's just like that heavy energy becomes sort of lighter, and it's moving, and it's like I can feel this sort of like a lightness or a joy. Because sometimes when we're doing a lot of this kind of like introspective work, it can get a little bit heavy, and it's like we have to also remember to like lighten up and have some fun. And so like moving your body, and like I was dancing to Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody this morning. Like it's like this, but it's like this lightness and this joy that comes, and so that really just makes me feel really good, and really nourishes me. And and sometimes I'll dance to something else, and even doing hip circles, and sometimes I'll have a wave of feeling like emotions that arise, and it's like, oh, what is that, and being with that. And so I think movement, especially for women, is really, really powerful, and I know I benefit from it greatly.
Oh, yes, I totally agree. I am super passionate about embodiment and movement and dance, like you said, especially for women. And my business before Courageous Self-Care was called Dance Ugly, Dance Awkward. So I feel so strongly that dance can resolve so many issues. Like every single Indigenous culture in the world uses dance to connect with their bodies, to connect with spirit, to connect with community, to connect with your soul. And there's no, in my experience, like I've tried a lot of different modalities, there is nothing like dance to, like you said, get things moving. And especially when there's pelvic movement involved, like I love African dance. There's lots of booty shaking, and I just love sharing with people that it is impossible to feel grumpy when you have a happy bum. When your bum is shaking from side to side, you're wiggling, and hilarious thrusting.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to be grumpy.
Yeah, it's just good because we just have carry so much energy. When it's stagnant and heavy, it's like we can feel it, and it's tough to be in that place. So if we can move, then it's like the energy gets moving, and it gets lighter, and it's not just kind of weighing us down. And it's just, yeah, like you said, I like that. I guess you can't be unhappy with a happy bum. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be very true. So it's like, shaking your bum a little bit, and it's like, it's hard to be in a bad mood.
Yeah. And James Brown has a quote: "If there are any problems that dance cannot solve, I don't know what they are."
Great. Oh, wow, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think it's underrated, but it's something that you can really, once you experience it, it's like, whoa, it's like, it really does have a big impact on your system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just want to share with you, the listeners, there's an interesting set of excuses that we often make for ourselves. So I see dance as an essential human experience. Like everyone has the ability to dance. But then we also have dance as an art form. And people get confused between I have to look good while dancing and I have to have training in order to dance. And that's completely not true. If you are walking around and you put on some music, poof, you're dancing. Yeah. Or if you're doing some hip circles, you're actually dancing. So everyone has the ability and the capability to dance. And yeah, I just feel like it's so important for people to let go of whatever's stopping you from dancing, because I guarantee that block is showing up in many other areas in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing in our life is compartmentalized. That's for sure.
Right.
So just, if we can move through that, and we can move, be liberated in that aspect, and it's like, there's this like permission or freedom to show up that way in other areas of our life. So it's just starting to express ourselves through dance. It's just, it's the ripple effects are, huge.
Yeah. Okay, so I've never done this on the show before, but I'm really feeling called. I'm so excited about dancing now. Do you mind standing up and we'll just shake our hips a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do
Okay,
it.
and you can't see us, listeners, but we encourage you to do it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're wiggling our hips, and we can see, Kerri and I can see each other on Zoom, so now we just see our torsos shaking.
Yeah.
And my son, who's home with the chicken pox, is looking at me crazy. Woohoo! Oh, and he's joining in. We've got a dance party going on. Yeah. Okay, listeners, I hope you joined in because that was super fun. I'm all sweaty now just from that.
Yeah. We both have happy bums. There we go.
Right. And now you can feel that we're even happier than when we started.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's just like I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a relief, or like almost like just like feeling a little bit more alive or full, or
Totally.
just,
yeah. Well, that's
like
what happens when you get your center of creativity and your power all moving, going in motion.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like all that stuff, it's very, it's very pleasurable. So
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That was awesome.
Okay.
So fun. Thanks for playing with me. So we're going to pause here for a quick message from the sponsor, and then we will carry on. And when we come back, Kerri is going to share a story of courage. So be sure to stay here, and maybe you want to wiggle your hips through the whole commercial. That would be fun. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. You made it. Hopefully you wiggled through. All right. So Kerri, I love to get guests, in addition to sharing a self-care practice, to share a story of courage. And just before you do that, I think it's super important to expose ourselves to the energy of courage. That's why I love to have guests share a story, because every time we hear someone else's story of courage, it reinforces that we also have that ability to be courageous. And I feel like the bridge between a life of monotony and stuckness and feeling blocked, the bridge to a life that is full of aliveness and passion and excitement and accomplishment and productivity, I feel like the bridge is courage. And so I think it's super important to expose ourselves to that energy from others and help it get closer and closer and closer until it is in our own hearts. And maybe if you've already done courageous stuff, because everyone has, you also are giving yourself permission to admit that you actually are a courageous person. And so I love that these stories help with that too. So with that, let's hear one of your stories of courage.
Okay. So, courage is actually one of my top values. So we're very much aligned. So yes. I find courage to be foundational, and people who aren't courageous don't exist, in my opinion. I think we're all courageous people. So, so a little bit about me and sort of a big story of courage. I mean, there's been many, but I definitely had this life where, I checked the boxes. I had went to school, I got the man, I got a good job, I got married, we bought a house, and we went on vacations. It was like, check, 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 perfect. And yet there was just this, I was starting to feel the discomfort of my comfort zone. And, I was, everything else was sort of the reason of why I was, experiencing depression and going on antidepressants. And when all those things seemingly sort of fell into place, my only option was to really look at my relationship. And once I did that, I could feel in my body that I did not want to be married anymore. And I wanted to leave. I needed to leave. It was like a call. I could feel it in every cell of my being. And I really, really tried to ignore that. And I did not want that to be the case at all. And so talking to, I'm pretty sure, every counseling center in Calgary, and that's no joke, trying to maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. And so probably the biggest step of courage that I've had is choosing myself. And I had to do that through leaving my relationship and leaving my marriage, which was devastating. And, I had to, hurt someone else. And that's always very painful. So that took a lot of courage, but I knew it was something that I had to do. And although it was painful, like still to this day, it's probably, I wouldn't be where I am now. And so taking that step of courage was, gave me, took me to all the, I've been, another kind of, I guess, thing that asked me to be courageous was shortly after leaving my marriage. My younger brother died by suicide just a few weeks after. And so it was like, I had this I left my marriage and naively thought I was just going to kind of do eat, pray, love, marry someone else, whatever. So, go travel somewhere else, marry someone with an accent and it'll be better. I'll marry him. Everything will be better. And then my brother passed shortly after. And so it was just this, it was really a call to change all of myself. And it was a lot of work, and it was, scary because everything had the foundation of my life had been ripped from under me. And, through the support of other people, particularly other women, I really started to do my own inner work. And I did a lot of emotional healing, because even though that stuff happens, you're going back to mother, father, inner child stuff. So really doing my emotional work, and that gave me and then another kind of step of courage. Courage has been a big theme in my life.
Yes.
Of, leaving Calgary, and, I worked overseas, and I actually traveled around and studied meditation and yoga and spirituality. And then I landed and lived in a tantric community. And this is where I learned more the intimacy and sacred sexuality aspects. And that really opened me up and opened my heart. And that took a lot of courage. So it was just, it's been a big theme in my life for sure.
Thank you for sharing all of the different aspects of this story, Kerri. It's, it sounds like there had to be a lot of connection with your heart. And so one question I had was, I'm sure there are people who are in similar situations, especially with the relationships that they know need to end, but like you said, you were ignoring it. So what did your ignoring behaviors look like? Like you said, you went to see counselors. What else were you doing to try to ignore the intuition you were getting?
Well, it happened, I think there was a lot I was in denial for a long time. Yeah. So there's a big portion of that time where I was really unaware.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I would look at my life and it was just like, well, I have X, Y, and Z. Why am I unhappy? And I really didn't know. And I didn't start to question. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't even really know what more looked like. I just thought this is what you this is the life that everyone goes after. And it's like, now I have it. And it's like, it's not really fulfilling. And so for me, it was just like, I noticed there was a lull in my life, and I just accepted it and just normalized it. So, and looking back, it's just, and a lot of times when I work with my clients, and it's like looking at this and it's like starting to question, it's like, what are you normalizing? Because when it becomes normal, it's like it's really difficult to question. And especially when I grew up with, seeing relationships as like, there was arguing and things like that. And me and my ex-husband, we never did that. And so I was just like, what could be wrong? And it's like, sometimes it's just that mediocre type of place that can be a really dangerous place, because it could be worse, but it also could be better. So we get stuck in this so a question I always like to ask my clients, and I wish I would ask myself, it's like, well, what would more look like? Mm-hmm. What could more look like, instead of just accepting just like what is in this kind of middle of the road type of place.
Yeah.
And looking back, it was, I was definitely depressed. Mm-hmm. And just didn't know why. And, I wish I had sought help sooner. Mm-hmm. That would have been something. But as soon as I the lights were on, and, everything else had to, other things in my life started to change, where it was like, the only thing I had to look at was my relationship. And then it was like, oh my God. And then that was a very scary moment, because I could feel feel it. And I didn't want that to be the case because I was married and I committed to someone. And, but in that moment, when I realized that, I sought help. And that's when, I think going through big things like that, I just don't think that we can really go it alone. Like, we really need that support of, whoa, I'm going through this right now, like, help, like someone to acknowledge, to see what you're going through. And going through something like that alone, that's a really tough place to be.
Yeah, and there's no need for it.
Right, exactly. No.
There's so many resources and people who specialize in helping with that.
Right. And people who have similar stories. So, and I've met many women who have, like, so it's just knowing that you're not alone. Yeah. Like the person I started working with, it's like had a similar background many years before, but it was just like someone who got it. And I wasn't sort of this foreign, like, what do you mean you have all this? What could be wrong? It was just like acknowledging, like, yes. And it was just to be seen and be, losing the word, validated in some way.
Right.
And just that was really healing, and that sort of begun really the journey that still continues.
Yeah, it's not ever
over. It's never over. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's super powerful. And I just really want to reiterate again, I think the biggest mistake that we tend to make with self-care is that we think we have to do it by ourselves. There's that Wonder Woman syndrome thing where we've just been convinced that strong, independent women are the ideal, and it's so not true. We are interdependent, and we live in community. That's how humans function. Aloneness is devastating, and so there's no need for it. There's so much support available. And so, Kerri, if people are really resonating with your message and wanting to reach out to you, where can they connect with you online?
So I have a website, so it's kerricust.com, and all my information is there, lists of workshops and, how you can work with me. And I also offer a free 30-minute consult for people. So if they want to sort of dig a little bit deeper and see if, where they're at and, my skill set and expertise can maybe serve in some way, then we can absolutely have a conversation and sort of look at that.
Love it. And people can connect with you and book that session on your website?
Yes, they can.
Okay, perfect. So yes, if you are feeling something, whether it is a giant yes or it is intense discomfort, acknowledge that, because there is something there that is a call to act on. Just like Kerri was saying before, there's something there, and it's so important to pay attention to what your body is telling you. So Kerri, I want to thank you for sharing your story and your dancing.
Yes. Thank you for dancing. Yeah.
That was so fun.
Yeah.
That was a first on the show in over 200 episodes.
There you go. Perfect. I'm glad to be the first. Yeah. Happy to shake my booty on.
Yeah. Happy with Happy Bum.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So thank you so much. And listeners, thank you for tuning in from wherever you are in the world. We are creating this epic wave of understanding that self-care is critical. It's not selfish. It's something that is a gift that you give to yourself. And part of the benefit is that then everyone in your immediate circle and people all over the world energetically benefit from you taking the time to focus in on yourself. I was just talking with my son this morning. The golden rule, treat others like you would like to be treated. I think it even has an underneath step, which is treat yourself how you want others to treat you. And when there are issues on the outside of us, the issue isn't with the other people, it's with ourselves. And so it all starts with self-care. Thank you for listening. I look forward to connecting with you again next time. And Kerri, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I'll connect with you next time. If this is your first time listening, the show is on usually once a week, unless I'm needing some very intense self-care. But yeah, you can count on hearing from great guests and the occasional teaching episode. So be sure to come back. I would love for you to be in this energy continuously. All right. I look forward to next time. Bye-bye for now.